In a distant corner of the galaxy, humanity has only one thing keeping them alive: a fragile peace treaty with a brutal alien empire known as the Kalyanari. They are towering, horned beings who value strength above all and see humans as weak, soft, and barely worth noticing. When a political crisis erupts, Earth agrees to an ancient custom: a marriage alliance. A human must wed a Kalyanari girl no one else wants, a girl rumored to be grotesque, deformed, and cursed. The chosen human, Ethan Hale, is dragged into a nightmare he never asked for, forced to become a husband to a monster. But on the night of their union, Ethan discovers something the galaxy was never meant to know. His alien bride is not what she appears. Her ugly form is a lie, a prison placed on her by her own people. And if that prison ever breaks, the universe will learn the terrifying beauty and unimaginable power humanity just married into. This marriage wasn't meant to save peace. It was meant to change the fate of every world. Ethan Hale tried to steady his breathing as the shuttle docked with the Kalyanari flagship, the metallic clanking echoing through the small cabin like the final notes of a funeral bell. He was flanked by two human soldiers who looked anywhere but at him, their expressions a mix of pity and fear. They didn't envy him. They wouldn't dare. A marriage to a Kalyanari was something even nightmares refused to touch. He stared out the narrow window, watching the stars smear into long streaks of pale light as the ship's gravity normalizers whined. He had volunteered. No, he reminded himself bitterly, he had been volunteered. A forced marriage, they had said. A diplomatic necessity, they had insisted. Earth's treaty depended on it. Humanity depended on it. But as he sat there in silence, he couldn't shake the feeling that humanity had simply handed him over like a sacrificial lamb. The hatch hissed open, and the towering forms of the Kalyanari guards entered, each over 9 feet tall, clad in dark armor that seemed to absorb light instead of reflecting it. Their horns curved upward like the bladed crowns of ancient kings. One of them grunted a word in their guttural language and motioned for Ethan to move. His legs felt weak as he stood, but he forced himself forward. Each step echoed. Each echo sounded like a countdown. They led him through halls of obsidian metal, alive with pulsing blue veins of energy that crawled like lightning beneath the walls. Screens flickered with shifting glyphs he couldn't understand. Eyes watched him. Not just Kalyanari soldiers, but strange machines mounted like skulls on the ceiling. He didn't want to imagine what they were for. Finally, the guards stopped at a massive door. It slid open slowly, revealing a grand chamber filled with alien symbols and burning violet torches. At the end of the hall, standing beneath a banner of serrated gold, was his future father-in-law, High Warlord Zevran. The warlord's voice boomed, shaking Ethan's ribs with every syllable. "Human, your presence honors our pact. Kneel." Ethan's pride screamed no, but the survival instinct that had kept humanity alive made him drop to one knee. The warlord circled him like a predator inspecting prey. "You are small," Zevran sneered. "Soft. Frightened." Ethan lifted his chin despite the tremor in his jaw. "Maybe, but I'm here, and I'll do what I must to protect my people." A long pause, then a low chuckle. "Courage. Unexpected." The warlord extended a massive hand toward a sealed doorway. "Tonight, you will bond with my daughter. Her name is Vaila." The name rolled like thunder. Ethan swallowed hard. He had been told only whispers about her, the unwanted Kalyanari princess. Deformed, impossible to look at, a living omen of misfortune, a curse wrapped in flesh. "Do not scream," the warlord added flatly. "She hates that." The door slid open with a grinding screech. Cold vapor spilled out. Ethan stepped inside, feeling the seal close behind him. Darkness swallowed the room. Only faint luminescence glowed from the walls like dying starlight. Then he heard her breathing. Slow, heavy, not human. "You are Ethan?" The voice startled him. It wasn't monstrous. It was quiet, fragile, even. "Why, yes," he whispered. "I am Vaila," she replied, voice trembling with nerves. "I know what they say about me. I know what you were told. You may look now." Something shifted in the shadows. Ethan braced himself for horror. His heartbeat hammered in his ears. Slowly, his eyes adjusted. A tall, hulking silhouette emerged. Spikes along the spine, jagged growths twisting from shoulders, limbs large enough to break steel. Her face, he hesitated. It was obscured by a thick shape-shifting veil, a chitinous mask fused to her skin. Only her eyes were visible, glowing, sorrowful, and ancient. She turned away, ashamed. "They call me broken," she whispered. "Ugly. A disgrace." Ethan's breath caught, and not from fear, from confusion. Her presence radiated power, not deformity. Every movement of hers made the ground shudder slightly, as if the room feared her. "I won't pretend I'm not scared," he finally said. "But I don't think you're what they say you are." Her eyes widened. She was silent, stunned. "You should sleep," she murmured, stepping back into shadow. "The bonding ritual begins at first light. I do not want to hurt you." Ethan lay on the strange, metallic bed provided for him. Sleep came in fragments, torn by worry. Hours passed, or maybe minutes, before a sound snapped him awake. Soft sobbing. Vaila. Crying. Painful. Choked sounds she clearly didn't want anyone to hear. Ethan hesitated, then quietly approached. "Are you okay?" She flinched, covering her face. "You should not come near me." "Why?" he asked gently. "Because this mask binds me," she whispered. "If it breaks, you will see what no one must ever see." Ethan's hand hovered near her shoulder. She shook violently, as if fighting back something inside. "I don't care how you look," he said. "You're not alone tonight." Her breathing paused. Slowly, she lowered her guard, just a little. "Your heart is strong," she whispered. "Stronger than any human I've known." Then the alarm screamed. Red light flooded the room. Metal barriers slammed down as voices roared through the comm system. "Containment breach. The princess is destabilizing." Ethan stumbled back as Vaila collapsed, claws digging into the floor, body trembling like a storm barely restrained. Cracks formed across her mask, glowing fissures of pure light spilling out. She looked at him, eyes drowning in terror. "Run," she begged. "If this curse breaks, I will not be your wife." Her body convulsed. The cracks spread. The mask began to fall away. And beneath it, something impossibly beautiful and terrifying awakened. The light exploded across the room. Then everything went dark. Ethan woke to the sensation of cold metal beneath his cheek and the dull ache of fear still clawing at his chest. His vision blurred as lights flickered wildly overhead. The room was wrecked, walls dented inward as if something enormous had tried to escape. Vaila was gone. The only evidence she had been there were long, molten streaks carved into the floor, still glowing with faint heat. The alarms had stopped, but the air felt electrically tense, like the moment after lightning strikes a field. As he pushed himself up, Kalyonari soldiers stormed in with weapons drawn, surrounding him instantly. "Where is the princess?" one roared, its voice shaking dust from the ceiling. She was here," Ethan stammered. "She changed. Or something tried to. They didn't listen." Clawed hands seized him, hauling him through the smoking corridor as a growing dread ate at his thoughts. What happened to her? Had he failed her already? They shoved him into a guarded chamber where High Warlord Zevran stood with his back turned, fists clenched behind him. Without looking, Zevran spoke, voice thick with barely contained rage. "You touched her. It wasn't a question." "I only tried to help her," Ethan said, forcing his voice to stay steady. She was crying. The warlord finally faced him, eyes burning like twin dying suns. "She is dangerous beyond understanding. That binding mask exists to protect this galaxy from what sleeps beneath her skin. If it breaks, worlds fall." Ethan felt a chill run the length of his spine. "She's your daughter. Why treat her like a curse?" Zevran's jaw tightened. "Because she is." Then he stepped closer, towering over Ethan. "Hear this, human. Tonight you bond with her as tradition demands. She must complete the ritual. It will keep her controlled, contained." Ethan felt his breath hitch. "And if she refuses?" Zevran leaned down, voice dropping to a cold whisper. Then you die, and Earth burns for her disobedience. The door slammed shut again, leaving Ethan alone with the chilling truth. He wasn't just a sacrifice. He was leverage. Hours passed before the door reopened, but instead of guards, Vaila entered, escorted by shackled silence. Her mask had been reforged, but now it was covered in thick black restraints, etched with glowing symbols like chains stitched into her flesh. She wouldn't meet his gaze. Her steps were heavy, each one tortured. He stood to approach, but a soft hiss of warning escaped her. "Do not," she whispered. "What happened?" he asked. "I lost control," she replied shakily. "The curse wakes faster than they believed." Her voice trembled as if every word fought some invisible torment. "They fear me, Ethan. They always have." The ritual chamber lit with ominous violet flames. Zevran and elders of the Empire watched from a high balcony as if attending an execution. Ethan and Vaila stood at the center, a platform marked with swirling runes. A deep hum vibrated through the air as the ritual began. Vaila's restraints unclamped, piece by piece, exposing the mask beneath, cracks still faintly pulsing. She looked terrified, not of him, of herself. "The ritual binds your souls," an elder announced. "If she loses form, she will borrow yours. If her power awakens, you must calm her. If she breaks, you die first." The floor glowed. Heat surged up Ethan's legs into his chest, into his mind. Vaila gasped, stumbling toward him, claws digging into the glowing runes. "I don't want this," she cried. "You don't deserve this." Ethan grabbed her hands without thinking, ignoring the heat, ignoring the fear. "You're not alone anymore," he said through gritted teeth. "I believe there's more to you than they want anyone to see." Her eyes widened, not with fear now, but hope. Then the chains snapped. A shockwave burst from her body, slamming everyone back. Ethan tried to hold on, but the energy tore into him, ripping through every nerve. He screamed as visions crashed into his mind. Stars collapsing, armies kneeling, galaxies burning beneath a single radiant form with wings of cascading light. A voice echoed through the void. "She is not cursed. She is the air." Ethan collapsed against her chest as the light dimmed, panting, shaking, mind reeling. Vaila stared at him, terrified of what he might now know. "You saw it," she whispered. "You saw what I truly am." Ethan nodded weakly. "You're not a monster." She leaned closer, her voice breaking apart. "No, Ethan, I am something far worse." Suddenly, the elders began shouting. Alerts flared. Soldiers flooded in. Vaila pulled Ethan close as a protective shield of energy erupted around them, her hands glowing with lethal power. "They will kill you to control me," she said in a trembling panic. "Run with me, right now." Ethan blinked in shock. "Run? Where?" Vaila looked up, fangs bared, as she blasted the ceiling open with a single pulse of unstoppable light. The entire flagship shuddered. Shards of molten metal rained down. Alarms howled. Zevran roared her name in rage and fear. Vaila wrapped Ethan in her arms, wings of shimmering energy tearing free from her back as she stepped into the burning breach above. "Anywhere but here," she whispered, and with a single leap powerful enough to crack the ship apart, she launched them both into the cold darkness of space. The void devoured sound as Vaila hurtled through space with Ethan clutched protectively against her. He expected freezing death, lungs collapsing, skin rupturing under vacuum. Yet warmth pulsed around them like a living cocoon. Her wings, made of swirling aurora light, shielded him completely. Stars spun like shards of broken glass as the Kalyanari flagship shrank behind them. Ethan stared up at Vaila's masked face, the cracks shimmering more fiercely now, each breath she took threatening to split her restrained power loose again. "You can fly in space," he whispered hoarsely, stunned. "I shouldn't," she gasped. "But the ritual has awakened too much." They soared toward a smaller vessel drifting nearby, a dark, angular scout craft. Vaila landed hard, talons lodging deep into the hull. With one brutal punch, She tore open the airlock door, alarms screaming as they stumbled inside. Artificial gravity re-engaged, slamming them to the floor. Ethan groaned as he tried to sit upright. Vaila helped him, hands gentle despite their deadly claws. Her voice shook. "I dragged you into my curse." "You saved my life," he countered. "That's not a curse." She froze, staring at him like she wasn't sure whether to believe him. The ship's lights flickered, recognizing unauthorized passengers. Automated systems blared warnings in harsh Kalyanari dialect. Vaila staggered toward the cockpit but nearly collapsed, the restraints and the mask radiating heat like molten stone. Ethan rushed to support her. "Tell me what's happening to you." "The ritual," she whispered. "Our souls connected. My power is feeding through you, and your mind is bleeding into mine." She looked at him, voice a fragile thread. "Do you feel it too?" He did. A pulse inside his chest, a foreign heartbeat overlapping his own. Whispers in a voice he didn't recognize but somehow knew. Yet he nodded. "Then we figure this out together." Her eyes shimmered, grateful, terrified. The engine controls were simple enough for her raw strength. She yanked a lever free. The ship roared to life, flinging them into star-streaked darkness. But escape wouldn't be easy. Lights erupted behind them. Kalyanari interceptors launched in pursuit. Vaila hissed under her breath. "Of course they come. They would rather see me dead than free." Ethan braced himself. "Can you outrun them? Fly?" "Yes." "Pilot a ship?" She looked at the tangled, torn controls. No, missiles streaked toward them like hungry comets. Ethan grabbed the navigation handles, instincts kicking in even though he had never flown a Kalyanari craft. It didn't matter, somehow he understood every symbol on the screen. It felt like a memory someone buried inside him years ago. Or someone. He jerked the craft into a spin, missiles exploding behind them in blinding fire. Vaila stared at him in disbelief. "Humans cannot. How did you?" "You said our souls were connected," he said, sweating as he dodged another blast. "Maybe that means I can do more than we think." Something like pride flickered in her eyes, but only for a heartbeat. The restraints around her mask dimmed. A crack widened, light bleeding through like dawn through a shattered sky. She groaned and collapsed to her knees. Ethan lunged to catch her. Flames of pure energy licked against his arms, yet didn't burn him. They knew him now. "Vaila," he cried. "What do I do?" "You can't help." Her voice was barely sound. "If the mask breaks, I'll lose myself. Then let me help you keep control." Ethan insisted, gripping her hands tight. Her claws almost pierced him, but he didn't let go. "Just breathe with me." His heartbeat calmed. Hers followed. The cracks dimmed, but the danger hadn't passed. A colossal shadow eclipsed the stars ahead. The flagship. Zevran's voice thundered through the comms. "Princess, return my son-in-law. You may keep your miserable existence, for now." Ethan was dragged to his feet as Vaila stood tall, fury unraveling inside her. "He is not yours to own," she roared, and the ship trembled with the force of her rage. Ethan whispered urgently, "We can't win a fight against them." "We won't fight," she said, stepping closer until their foreheads touched, mask against skin, a spark leaping between them. "We dive." Before he could question her, she seized the controls and pointed the craft toward the nearest planet, an emerald world swirling with storms and broken mountain ranges. The flagship fired. The scout ship shuddered violently, alarms howling as hull integrity plummeted. Fire tore through the engine. Gravity seized them like a monstrous hand dragging them downward. They plummeted through atmosphere, flames devouring their descent. Ethan held Vaila as she wrapped her wings around him, teeth gritted against the agony ripping through her body. He tried to speak, to comfort her, but the crash hit before words could form. The world exploded. Smoke, silence, darkness. Ethan's ears rang as consciousness flickered. He tasted dust and blood. He forced his eyes open. The wreck lay in a twisted crater of searing metal. The sky above roared with thunder. "Vaila!" he coughed, searching desperately. He found her half buried under shattered plating. He clawed at the debris, dragging her free. She lay motionless, her mask now cracked completely down the middle, faint golden light spilling through like a star breaking free. Her chest shuddered with irregular breaths. Ethan cradled her, voice breaking. "Stay with me, please." A rustling sound emerged from the storm-dark forest beyond the crater. Shapes, massive, predatory, moved closer. Glowing eyes ringed the clearing. Ethan positioned himself between Vaila and the advancing beasts. He had no weapon, no armor, nothing but terror, until a burning pain lanced through his palm. He looked down. A glowing sigil etched itself into his skin, Vaila's mark. A surge of alien power raced up his arm, turning fear into fire. The creatures halted. Then one spoke, not with a mouth but inside his skull. "Kneel, bearer of the awakening. Kneel, before your queen." Ethan paled as every beast dropped low, heads bowed toward Vaila's broken form. The jungle itself seemed to tremble. Then a whisper curled through his mind. Not his voice, not theirs, hers. "Ethan, don't let them have me run." The beasts lifted their heads. Hunger glinted again. Ethan tightened his grip on her. The storm above cracked open with a golden flare as the mask split completely, and a radiant eye opened beneath it. Golden light poured from the crack in Vaila's mask as the swollen storm clouds above churned like a living sea responding to her awakening. Ethan stumbled backward as the beasts that surrounded them suddenly lowered themselves even further, their glowing eyes shifting from hunger to reverence. The ground itself seemed to pulse in rhythm with Vaila's breathing. Ethan had no idea what any of it meant, only that something inside her was no longer silent. Her eye, bright as a newborn star, locked onto him with a mix of confusion and raw, unfiltered fear. "Ethan?" she whispered, a trembling echo in his mind rather than aloud. The voice wasn't the soft, guarded one he had known. It was layered, ancient, too vast for her small frame. He knelt beside her, hands hovering uncertainly as if touching her now might ignite the world. "You're okay," he tried to assure her, even though nothing about this felt okay. He could feel her power pressing against the air like a storm begging to be unleashed. The beasts began chanting, or maybe the forest itself did, low, rhythmic echoes. "Awakened air, awakened air." Vaila winced, covering her ears. "Make them stop. They shouldn't know what I am." Ethan stood, facing the creatures. "Stop!" he shouted, surprising himself when energy flared around the command, crackling like lightning. The chanting died instantly. The beasts retreated. Ethan stared at his own hands as faint golden sparks danced between his fingertips. He didn't understand this, but he didn't have time to. A low rumble built from the sky. He looked up. The Kalyonari flagship tore through the clouds, descending like a floating fortress ready to crush the planet beneath it. Ethan's blood ran cold. They were coming to take her back, or kill her before she fully awakened. Vaila forced herself to stand, legs wobbling. "We have to move," she said, voice strained. "My father will burn this world to bury what he fears." Ethan supported her as they made their way into the dense foliage, leaving the smoking crater behind. Each step she took sent small bursts of energy flickering from the mask, lighting the shadowed jungle path in pulses like a beating heart. After a long, exhausting descent into a ravine, Vaila collapsed again. Ethan eased her against a twisted root and brushed damp hair from her eyes. "What are you?" he asked softly. She looked away. "Something that should never exist." Ethan shook his head. "You're someone who saved me. That's enough." Her gaze softened. "You saw more. You saw what sleeps beneath me." Ethan hesitated. The visions, galaxies bowing, worlds burning. Vaila flinched as if each word were a wound reopening. "I was born with a power the Kalyonari worship and fear. The eternal form, the final evolution of our kind. They locked it away in me, because if it wakes fully, there is no force left in the universe that can stop it." Ethan felt the weight of her confession crush every breath from his chest. "Why show me?" "I didn't," she whispered. "You took my hand. You reached in. Now you are tied to my fate." A deep roar echoed overhead as dropships erupted from the flagship, streaking downward like iron vultures. Vaila tried to stand again but cried out as the mask cracked further, another sliver of light tearing through the restraints and burning the air. "Don't force it," Ethan begged, catching her once more. Her claws dug painfully into his shoulders. "Ethan, if it breaks, my eternal form will surface. It doesn't know mercy. It only knows destiny. And it will not recognize you." He held her tighter. "I'll make it recognize me." Her eyes shimmered, gratitude flickering through the terror. Then something shifted behind them. A hooded figure stepped from the trees, cloaked in feathers of silver and black. The beasts scattered instantly in panic. The air went unnaturally still. "Princess Vaila," the figure murmured, voice reverent and dangerous. "The galaxy has awaited this day." Vaila recoiled. "Stay away." The figure ignored her, instead kneeling before Ethan. "You are the bonded human, the one foretold." Ethan blinked in shock. "Foretold?" The hooded figure removed his helm, revealing a Kalinari face marked with glowing sigils, different from the others, older, sharper. "The ritual did not bind you by accident. You were chosen long before either of you breathed your first breath." His gaze shifted to Vaila. "Your awakening has begun. The eternal form will bloom through you once the mask shatters entirely." Vaila snarled. "I don't want to be a weapon." "Ah!" The figure smiled, serene and terrifying. "But destiny does not care what you want." He extended a hand, light swirling into a blade of pure starlight. "Come, Ethan. Your purpose begins now. The queen must rise." Ethan stepped protectively in front of Vaila. "I'm not going anywhere with you." The blade hummed, vibrating dangerously close. "You cannot protect her from herself." The ground thundered as Kalinari soldiers burst into the ravine from both sides, weapons drawn. The hooded figure sighed. "The king arrives. Time is shorter than I hoped." He looked directly into Vaila's single exposed eye. "Survive this crash, princess. We will speak again when your crown stops trembling." In a flash of shattering light, he vanished. But something else appeared in his place. A pulsing cube made of pure golden energy hovered in the air, drifting toward Vaila like a moth drawn to flame. Her breath hitched. "No, not here. Not now." The cube touched her mask, and the restraints exploded. A blinding shockwave tore the ravine in half, trees snapping, rocks flying. Soldiers screamed as they were flung like broken dolls. Ethan was hurled backward, the world spinning violently. When he hit the ground, he struggled up through the haze, vision swimming, and froze. Vaila stood in the center of the devastation. The mask was gone. The restraints were ash. Her skin glowed like starlight under her flesh. Wings of sheer radiance unfurled behind her, stretching so wide they eclipsed the soldiers' searchlights entirely. Her hair rose like a golden storm. But what terrified Ethan most, her eyes no longer held fear, no guilt, no softness. They looked at him and saw nothing human worth recognizing. Her voice echoed through the ravine, layered with 1,000 silent screams and a queen's command. "Kneel, mortal." Ethan's heart stopped. She didn't know him. Not anymore. Night fell heavy on Vakora's capital, and the celebration outside slowly faded. Inside the private suite, Rylan sat alone at the table while Selvara stood near the balcony, staring up at the twin moons. The faint silver glow touched her skin, and something about her posture felt tense, like she was bracing for something painful. He finally spoke. "You're not eating." She didn't turn around. "I don't eat when the moons are full." Rylan blinked. "What does that mean?" She finally turned toward him, but carefully stayed in the shadows. Her eyes were glowing slightly, more than before. Not a trick of light, something biological. Instinctive. He felt his chest tighten. "Rylan," she said quietly, "what you saw today. The claws, the strength, the broken armor. It's not the worst part of me." He stood up slowly, trying not to show fear. "Then what is?" She hesitated, trembling. "The reason no Vakorian chooses me. The reason they call me a curse. They think my bloodline." carries a monster. Rylan stepped closer. You saved me. That doesn't sound like a monster. Her breathing grew sharp. You don't understand. When the twin moons rise, the change begins. My body fights it, but sometimes I lose. He felt himself drawn forward despite the warning. Lose what? Myself, she whispered. Then she stepped into the moonlight. Rylan's heart thudded. Scales spread across her arms like obsidian armor growing from her skin. Her spine arched as a second layer of plates formed. Her pupils slit into blades of gold. Every breath came with a low, feral rumble. And yet, she looked terrified. She clutched the balcony rail, shaking violently as she tried to suppress the transformation. Go! She gasped, voice warping. Leave before I hurt you. He stared, frozen between fear and awe. The creature emerging before him wasn't something out of nightmares. It was something ancient, powerful, beautiful in a terrifying way. Rylan stepped closer again. If you were going to hurt me, you would have done it earlier. You saved me twice. Her claws slammed into the railing, denting the metal. This is different, she hissed, teeth sharpening as she grimaced in pain. I feel every instinct screaming to tear, to kill, to survive. He reached out, hand trembling, but he still placed it on her scaled forearm. The surface felt warm, alive, trembling like an animal fighting a predator that lived inside itself. She stared at his hand, then looked up into his eyes. For a moment, her breathing slowed. The glow in her eyes softened. You're not a curse, he murmured. You're fighting harder than anyone I've ever met. She shuddered, forcing the scales to retract little by little, a battle painful to watch. Finally, she collapsed against him, exhausted and shaking. He caught her without thinking, words leaving him before he could stop them. You don't have to fight alone anymore. Her fingers curled weakly around his shirt, and in a trembling voice, she whispered something she had never dared say to anyone before. Please, don't leave me. The room fell silent, until a cold metallic click echoed behind them. Rylan turned. A Vicorian officer stood in the doorway, weapon raised, eyes filled with fear as he looked at Selvara in her half-transformed state. Step away from the monster, the soldier barked, trembling finger tightening on the trigger. Rylan instinctively shielded her with his body. But the soldier wasn't alone. A dozen armored warriors poured into the room. One of them shouted, The prophecy has begun. The hybrid bond must be broken. Kill the human. Rylan's heart dropped. Everything he thought he knew about this marriage was just the beginning of a far darker truth. And tonight, under the moons, something ancient inside Selvara finally awakened. Rylan didn't think, his body simply moved. He pulled Selvara behind him as energy shots blasted through the room, scorching walls and shattering the balcony glass. Selvara struggled to lift her head, still weak from pushing back the transformation. The Vicorian commander pointed his weapon, voice sharp with fear. The human must die before the bond completes. Stand aside. Rylan shouted back. What bond? What are you talking about? The answer came from Selvara's trembling lips. My kind, we are empathic. Our chosen partner influences the transformation. If I bond to a human, I could become something new, something stronger, something they can't control. Rylan swallowed hard. Stronger sounds good right now. Not to them, she whispered. Energy bolts lit the air again. Selvara reacted on instinct. Her arm shot forward, claws extended, and she deflected a blast, sending it ricocheting into the ceiling. She looked at her own hand in shock. For the first time, she wasn't afraid of her strength. She used it. With a roar that shook the suite, she rushed forward, shielded Rylan with her body, and threw two soldiers aside like rag dolls. But more poured in, too many to fight in her weakened state. Rylan grabbed her arm. We need to leave. There's only one way, she said, eyes darting to the shattered balcony. He looked down, wind howling past the towering spires. A deadly drop. Oh, that's comforting. She took his hand and locked eyes with him. Do you trust me? You're literally the only one here not trying to kill me. So, yes. Without hesitation, she leapt, dragging him with her. The world turned into a blur of wind and city lights and pure panic. Then, just before they hit a hover traffic lane, dark wings burst from her back, wide, powerful, gleaming like a predator of the night. She wasn't falling. She was flying. A shocked laugh escaped Ryland's throat. You have wings. Her voice strained, breath heavy. They only show when I truly need them. And right now qualifies, he yelled over the wind. Below them, alarms wailed and patrol craft scrambled into the sky. Bright search beams cut through the darkness, hunting them like prey. One shot came far too close. Her wings faltered. They crashed hard onto the roof of a metallic tower. Selvara gasped, clutching her chest, scales flickering in and out like her body couldn't decide what form to take. Ryland knelt beside her. Hey, stay with me. She grabbed his wrist, fear and determination battling in her eyes. They will never stop. Not as long as you're alive. Because you're the key to what I could become. And what's that? She looked into him, voice barely a whisper. A queen. Before Ryland could speak, a deep rumble vibrated through the rooftop. Panels slid open, and out rose a towering war mech, its visor pulsing red. A booming voice echoed from its speakers. Royal decree. Terminate the hybrid threat. Ryland stepped in front of her again, heart pounding, body shaking, ready to fight something he had no hope of beating. But this time, Selvara's voice was different. Darker, stronger. Stay behind me, husband. Her eyes flared with golden fire, and the monster they feared started to rise. The war mech stomped forward, each step making the roof tremble beneath them. Its arm cannon powered up with a low mechanical snarl. Ryland stood frozen, heart thundering so hard it hurt. Selvara rose slowly. The glow in her eyes wasn't fading anymore. It was spreading. Scales crawled across her skin like living armor. Her wings unfurled to their full span, nearly touching both edges of the rooftop. The transformation wasn't wild or painful now. It was controlled, purposeful. The mech fired. Selvara moved faster than Ryland could track, a blur of silver and black. She slammed into the machine, ripping its cannon clean off. Sparks flew as the mech stumbled, struggling to target her. She didn't give it the chance. A roar tore out from her chest, primal, powerful, ancient. The mech crumpled beneath her claws as though it were made of paper. Metal screamed, then silence. Ryland stared, stunned, speechless. You just. She turned toward him, and everything around them changed. The sirens stopped. The searchlights froze. The Vicorian soldiers who had been chasing them earlier suddenly dropped to their knees. Even the distant patrol aircraft hovered motionless in the sky. Every Vicorian in sight bowed toward Selvara. Eyes lowered, voices trembling. They weren't afraid. They were reverent. A voice echoed across the rooftop from a robed figure stepping out of the shadows. A high priest, wearing ancient armor inlaid with strange symbols. It is true, he said, breath shaking. The prophecy lives. The Drakkar Blood Queen has awakened. Ryland blinked. The what now? Selvara looked just as shocked as he was. That's a myth. A legend told to scare children. The priest interrupted, pointing at Ryland. A Vicorian transformed by love for a human. A union that rewrites evolution. A queen descended from the lost Drakkar, forged by a forbidden bond. His voice lowered darkly. She will command every living warrior, or destroy us all. Ryland stepped forward defensively. She's not here to destroy anyone. The priest's eyes narrowed. That depends entirely on you, human. You are the catalyst. Without your heart, she cannot ascend. Before Ryland could make sense of that, the rooftop platform shuddered as massive doors opened in the distance. A sky fortress, enormous and covered in war banners, began to rise above the city. On its highest deck stood the Vicorian Emperor himself. His amplified voice cut through the wind. Seize the human. The Queen lives only if we control her. A wave of armored troops took flight, hundreds. Rylan grabbed Selvara's hand. We run. But she didn't move. She stared straight at the Emperor, and something changed inside her. Her wings tightened behind her. Her claws retracted. She stood taller. Her fear was gone. Rylan, she whispered. All my life they have tried to own me, hide me, break me. Her voice trembled, but not from fear, from certainty. If they take you, I become their weapon. If you stay at my side. She looked into his eyes, soft, desperate hope shining through the power. I become their ruler. He squeezed her hand back. Then I'm not going anywhere. A fierce, beautiful smile curled across her lips, something between human and dragon. The soldiers closed in from all sides. Selvara spread her wings. The sky fortress aimed every gun they had right at them. Rylan inhaled, heart steady now. What's the plan? Selvara's voice dropped into a low, dangerous purr. First, we take their throne. As the first barrage of fire lit the sky, she leapt into the air with Rylan held tight, straight toward the Emperor. And the world would never be the same again.